The focus today will be on Nigeria's unemployment data. And according to the National Bureau of Statistics, Nigeria's unemployment rate has risen to 5.3% in the first quarter of 2024. But I'm joined now by my guest, who is a professor of entrepreneurship in the person of Professor Seth Akutsun. Thank you, Prof, for coming on the program this morning. Good to have you.
Well, thank you very much. My pleasure.
Thank you very much for being a guest on the program this morning. But Prof, let's start by hearing your views on the recently labeled data from the National Bureau of Statistics. What do you make of this number? Unemployment currently at 5.3%, well, according to the NBS.
Oh, thank you very much. The National Bureau of Statistics, NBS, owns the monopoly of turning out data for use by policymakers, researchers, and the academia. The truth of the matter is that the figure lacks the fiber that relates to the reality on ground. When they, first of all, use a different methodology to bring the unemployment figure to 4-point-something, now 5.3%. I think the reality on ground does not match that figure. Before the 4-point-something unemployment figure that was drawn out by the National Bureau of Statistics, it was 33%. Now, if you match that with the inflation rate in Nigeria, you see that they run pari passu. But today, the 5.3% with the rate of inflation and the interest rate does not look real. How do you say that our unemployment is 5.3 when many people are looking for jobs? When you advertise for position for 10%, you have thousands and thousands of people, tens of thousands of people applying. How do you match that with so many businesses that are closing down? How do you match that with many manufacturing organizations that is beating the country? How do you match that with other issues on ground? That the hunger on the land, the difficulty of running businesses, how do you match that? So when we are building figures, we have to look at the reality. We must look at the perspective to which the integrity of the data will be acceptable to the generality of the populace. So as it is now, the figure, despite the fact that it's an increase over the last figure, is still not okay. And I think that the National Bureau of Statistics need to interrogate this figure again and review their methodology so that the figure will be realistic. Because if you match that figure with what we call the, you look at the mystery index, whereby you look at unemployment rate and look at the inflation rate, and match them together, it did not add up. So I want to suggest that we should interrogate it further and look at it, because those of us in the research field who are finding it difficult to work with that figure. And secondly, when your unemployment figure is extremely low, supportive measures to boost employment, maybe from deployment partners, they begin to feel that we are not facing zero challenge on unemployment, whereas we are facing. And so I think it is not okay to conclude that that is the reality of ground.
Well said, Professor Seth Akutsun. But let's go on a short break. When we return, the conversation continues, and Professor Seth Akutsun, who is a professor of entrepreneurship, is still on standby. Do stay. And you're still watching Business Daily, coming to you live on Trust TV. And just before the break, we started our conversation proper, and we are looking at the recently released labor statistics by the National Bureau of Statistics. And according to data, Nigeria's unemployment rate stands at 5.3% in the first quarter of 2024. But I still have my guest here with me. He is Professor Seth Akutsun, a professor of entrepreneurship. Thank you, Prof, again for coming on the program this morning.
Oh, thank you very much. My pleasure.
Prof, you have raised your concerns, around the validity of, this data being churned out by the National Bureau of Statistics. But some others might argue that the 33.3% from about 2 years ago was an after effect of the COVID-19 pandemic, where we saw, increasing unemployment across board. But let us hear what your thoughts are regarding that.
Well, have we fully recovered from the COVID? If we said before the COVID was 33%, and now after the COVID is 5%, are we saying that we are fully recovered from the COVID? Were we not better before the COVID than now? So how does unemployment, when businesses are shutting down after the COVID, when there are a lot of challenges in manufacturing, when big players in the industry are struggling to survive, they will now say that we are better off than before COVID? Globally, even after the COVID, you notice that economies of various nations are not doing as well as they're supposed to. So that does not add water, does not hold water in any form. So what we are looking at is to look at the reality on ground. The unemployment rate, I want to tell you that there are other researchers, there are other organizations that are also taking figures. Definitely, unemployment rate in Nigeria should be hovering between 30 and 40% as it is, based on some figures and some statistics we're getting from those who are doing private researches, those who are churning out data their own way. So I don't want to argue with what the NBS has brought out, and I don't know how they came about it, but as it is, that's the official rate that we have for now, but it's not realistic.
Okay, Prof. I would like for us to, speak to the entrepreneurship in Nigeria and, entrepreneurship as a solution to unemployment, because according to the data by the National Bureau of Statistics, we also did see high unemployment rate amongst postgraduate holders. And then you talk about, graduates and secondary school degree holders. Goes to show that not in every case is education a solution to joblessness. But I would like for you to speak regarding that. How can entrepreneurship, bridge that gap? Talking about the unemployment gap for individuals across the nation.
Yeah, of course, we have over 40 million SMEs in Nigeria, internationally doing very well, adding to the growth of the economy, at least about 15% or more. And what I feel, yes, entrepreneurship we have, but the environment is not conducive for entrepreneurship to strive. For instance, if you look at what, apart from finance, what data has shown, research from Smeden, from GIZ, from the rest of them, you will notice that the SMEs in Katsina are facing zero challenge coming from market failures, also infrastructure and regulatory framework, support system, and so on and so forth. So with these challenges they're facing, whereas if the government has provided the needed environment, business environment, the ease of doing business that the government is talking about is not impacting positively on SMEs and the entrepreneurs. So what we are talking about is that, look, the government can address this unemployment. If you have more than 40 million SMEs, and if each one is employing just 2 or 3%, you can see that you'll be able to employ more than 100 million persons, which is massive. So if we are about 200 million or more, and you have more than 100 million in employment, that is great. But as it is, the SME are struggling because they needed environment for them to thrive, for them to do well, for them to bring out profit in their businesses. It's not there. So the ecosystem generally is faulty. So if you look at even the tax system, the fiscal policy, the monetary policy, the exchange rate, and the rest of them are not favorable to business. So how do you expect them to employ, graduate or postgraduate students that have, gotten their master's degree or PhD or whatever? So this is where the problem is. Whereas I agree with you that the entrepreneurship will be a way out to it, but the entrepreneurship is not the kind of entrepreneurship that will solve this problem as it is at the moment.
You have spoken regarding the business environment here in Nigeria. I'd just like to hear your thoughts on the recent increase of the monetary policy rate by, 50 basis points by the Central Bank of Nigeria. Already there has been, diverse opinions come from that move by the CBN. This morning, while I was, going through the newspaper review, I did see, the LCCI come out to say that micro, small and medium enterprises really cannot, stay afloat with an interest rate this high. Well, let's hear from you, Prof. What are your thoughts on that development?
Yes, well, the intention of the CBN is to mop up excess liquidity in the system. That is good enough. And also to tame inflation so that people will deposit their money in the banks when the interest is very high. But even given at that, what it means is that if you take 100% of your money to the banks can only afford to deal with you 50% of that amount. That's what the interest is going to come from because of the CRR and all the rates that the central bank want the bank, to flow with. Now, if you look at it at 27% for you to, if you want to loan from the bank, you are going to pay about 37%, or 35, 36, 37, thereabouts. So if that is the case, how much profit will you make to pay that loan, pay the interest and pay the principal? Which business will survive by paying about 40% interest on loan? How much will you make? Is it easy with this hard economic reality to make 50% or more than 50% profit in any business? Except maybe you are GT Bank that is probably making over $1 trillion. And now the thing has become controversial. Even the House of Representatives are interrogating it and wondering how. And the banks are the most regulated entity in any business cycle. But yes, look at the profits they're turning out. And don't forget that they are going to the market so that they can meet the new target that the central bank has given them. So as it is with this new rate, forget it, business will be struggling. They need loan to grow their business, to expand their business, to sustain their business, and to remain afloat in business. So as it is, the Archimedes principle is no longer working here. That when the body is immersed in a fluid, it experiences an upthrust equal to the weight of fluid display. The balancing of their businesses cannot work at nearly 40% interest rate. So this is where we find ourselves.
Unfortunately so, talking about micro, small and medium enterprises, which interestingly are the backbone of the Nigerian economy. But Prof, I would like to hear your thoughts on, urban versus rural entrepreneurship. According to data, urban unemployment rates are higher than rural unemployment rate. And I will want to hear from you now, regarding what could be driving this rural urban divide when it comes to entrepreneurship, especially, and how can we alleviate, the urban unemployment?
Well, this is the paradox that we're facing, whereby the population is in the urban centers, where we expect that there will be massive unemployment. Now, because of the insecurity in the rural areas, they are migrating to the urban center. If you check now, you see that people now in their backyard, in front of their homes, and all that, you see farming activities going on. So some of them from the rural area, they are migrating to the urban centers to secure jobs to get it. And because of the insecurity, they have to pay some tolls to access their farms. And then also, if you notice, you see that the bandits have stopped them from accessing their farms. Some of them will be asked to pay. So because of that, a number of them are jobless. A number of them are unemployed because in the rural areas, farming is their main business. And normally, you expect that over 90% of rural person. They are involved in farming, and that's their message. So you cannot access their farm. They are sitting at home doing nothing. So they now migrate to the city to work, to do menial jobs, to do labor jobs, to do housework, and the rest of them to survive. So it's not surprising that we're having this, given the nature of the insecurity in our system.
I will also want for us to touch on the gender disparities in employment. According to the report, there was a higher level of unemployment amongst females compared to males. What do you think now that are the roles that female entrepreneurship can play in bridging this gender disparities, and what policies should we see, being directed especially towards the female gender?
No, well, of course, if you look at the female gender, they are not doing badly of late, because statistics have shown that the loan payment return is higher with female than male. So they probably have more access to finance than the male counterpart. But having said that, the stereotypes, the system we find ourselves, the discriminatory outlook in terms of business, in terms of that, is favorable to the male gender than the female. Because if you notice, you will see that because of our culture, because of our makeup system, because of religion and the rest of them, the female don't have access. A number of them are full-time housewives, but you know that you don't have full-time house husband. So because of that, you see a number of them are probably jobless, are overstaying at home, not doing anything, or doing little, or doing the work of housewife and what have you. And so this is what you notice. And also, because of issue of gynecology, in fact, if the female give birth or they get married, some organization will not accept where they can get their 6 month maternity leave and the rest of them. So you see that with that, some of them will lose their job as a result of their marriage, or as a result of giving birth to children and all that. So the female gender are facing that kind of challenges, and that is why, of course, the employment rate, as it were, is not in their favor. But as it is, I can tell you, within the last few years, they are not doing badly. If you look at the banks now, a number of CEOs in the banks now are female, because it was not like that before. And if you look at other private sector entities, other organizations, you will see that the female are not doing badly. So at the top hierarchy of governance, the female are there, and we are very proud of them. We are proud of what they're doing. But as it were, on the general level, they have not found their bearing. There's no breakthrough into that middle class level where you see a lot of women doing very well. So this is what is happening.
Well said, Prof. Indeed, there has been, an increased level of gender balancing across board, but there is still a lot more to be done. Prof, you did speak regarding misery index earlier, and according to the data, the number of discouraged job seekers have risen, and that brings, to focus concerns around the mental stability of most Nigerians. But let's hear from you, Prof. What are your thoughts on that regarding the increase in the in the number of discouraged job seekers, and what role can entrepreneurship play in this, even though you've spoken regarding the business environment in Nigeria? But let's hear from you.
Well, you see, the misery index tells us the level, the percentage of misery that is facing our nation. And it can be very discouraging, because job seeking opportunity now is very difficult. For instance, the only way you can break through is either you know somebody, you have the right connection, or you belong to a very well-known family. But the best way to do is to have the employability skills. There's what they call the 4 E's. When it comes to employment, you must have the 4 E's. The first is the right education. The first E, the education. Then the second E is employability. The third E, you have to do with the employment itself, ability to break through that employment. Then the fourth, of course, the last is the entrepreneurship. Now, it's not everybody that will be involved in entrepreneurship. Some of them, they have to be in employment, either self-employment or paid employment. Now, whatever the situation is, people are discouraged because it's very difficult to get employment. The government, either at the federal, state, or local government level that's supposed to be the Father Christmas when it comes to employment, are not doing very well because they are financially strained. And so the money to employ more people, in fact, some government has even put embargo on employment, as it were. So it's very difficult for them to get employment. So entrepreneurship will require capital to start. But as we say in entrepreneurship, if you cannot make money without money, you cannot make money with money either. So what entrepreneurship is the right idea, and how to go about that idea and get funding for it and all that. That's what makes an entrepreneur. But you cannot just be an entrepreneur expecting that they will come and drop money on your lap and say you go and start business, or you go and meet somebody with a proper proposal or business plan and say that you want to do this, you want to collect money from him, either your friends or relation or whatever. Is not as easy as it were. So the system is difficult, but within this difficult system, there are opportunities. And that is why we change the SWOT analysis to SWOT analysis. We remove the weaknesses and the threat, we replace them with aspiration and results. So it becomes SWOT instead of SWOT. So entrepreneurs are expected to break barriers, to break whatever difficulty they have. That's what will make them entrepreneurs. So if all the environment is perfect, then everybody will become an entrepreneur. The reason why not everyone is an entrepreneur is because of the difficulties and because of the ability to scale through those difficulties. So we expect people, in spite of the difficulty in Nigeria, that's why you see the Indians are coming to Nigeria, the Chinese are coming to Nigeria, and they are doing very well because you strive better as an entrepreneur when the environment is challenging.
Prof, you said something. You said that the environment might be challenging, but there are opportunities inherent. I would like for us to speak regarding, creating a more favorable business environment. What policies or structural changes should we be, addressing as a nation, from the federal to the state and local governments?
Okay, fantastic. There's what we call the acronym that we call MISFIT. MISFIT is an acronym for number 1, market. Number 2, infrastructure. Number 3, structures. Number 4, you have the finance. The number 5 I that is there that you have to talk about, the investment climate. Then you have the T, the technology, and then you have the S, the support system. And so if we address the misfit, which I've given you this acronym misfit, I gave you all the items that need to be handled, then of course we can deal with the environment. Then we go back to the policy framework, the monetary policy, the fiscal policy. We cannot continue to increase the basis point and expect businesses to strive. Well, we want to retain unemployment and the volume of money in circulation. We should balance up with the fiscal side. The government, expenditure needs to be looked at, and where is the expenditure going in favor. And then we look at taxes. If businesses are struggling, you have to give them some tax holidays so that they can survive. So we expect from the monetary and fiscal side, government should address using the acronym MISFIT. So, and there's what also we call the heart hit. This is Sterling Bank was driving that heart hit. Then we look at the health sector. A number of people are not healthy. You talk about the mental health situation in the country. How can people be productive when they are not healthy? Then we have to look at education in the heart. The heart is also an acronym. Then you also look at agriculture. We have to focus on the middle of the heart, agriculture. Then renewables. We have not worked on renewable. We are still struggling with electricity infrastructure and all that. Then we can now talk about, transportation. One of the reasons why you see that goods are very expensive, this inflation we're facing has to do with logistics and the supply chain management system. So if those are not addressed, the transportation is not addressed very well, the food inflation will continue to go up because of the logistic involved transportation from the villages, and the roads are not good enough. So you can see the transport is another issue. Then the E, we have to have IT. That is, we have to look at the information and technology infrastructure up to now, we don't have a very sound, good internet infrastructure in the country. The internet penetration rate is still struggling. You will see that sometimes we want to go into Zoom discussion. I want to go online. You find out that sometimes we struggle with data, we struggle with network, we struggle with that. So I think we should enhance the technology infrastructure, make it accessible, make it affordable, and make it strong enough to build businesses and make people to survive in their business. So very important, the government can play that role very well.
Supply chain management, as well as logistics management, infrastructure development, and obviously, digital infrastructure development as well. And a lot more, has been listed by Professor Seth Akutsun, who is a professor of entrepreneurship, and he has spoken extensively regarding, bridging that unemployment gap, as according to the National Bureau of Statistics, Nigeria's unemployment rate has hit 5.3% in the first quarter of 2024. But thank you, Prof, for all the insights that you have shared with us on today's edition of the program.
Thank you very much. My pleasure. Best wishes and happy day.
Thank you. And that's all we will be bringing to you on today's edition of Business Daily. But keep the conversation going on social media and let us hear your thoughts regarding the data that has been reeled out by the NBS, talking about, unemployment, underemployment, the gender disparity around the figures, as well as, the levels of discouragement amongst Nigerian youths. Because indeed, the NBS has come out to say that that the levels of discouragement amongst job seekers has unfortunately increased. But let's hear your thoughts on that and how, we can bridge that gap amongst, Nigerians. But that's all that we will be taking on today's edition of the program. My name is Chiamaka Inendu. Thank you for watching, and bye for now.